Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. We talk about horror movies on this show, as October is the month of Halloween. We're getting very close to Halloween, in fact. We're there, it was 26th today, I think. But we're getting close. So we've been doing lots of extra episodes, and we had a very strict schedule planned out for the month, and it's already been shaken up once or twice with little extras, because the babysitter kind of came out of nowhere. We added that in. And likewise, we thought we were so close to the end. Nothing can surprise us now. And sure enough, out of nowhere, we find out that Creep 2 has been released, and we're like, damn, we like Creep 1. We kind of have to do Creep 2. So this is actually an additional film on top of what was planned this week, meaning that for the one and only time out of the whole month, every single day this week has a Screams After Midnight episode because of this.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. What a way to end the month.
Yeah, because the Saturdays haven't had anything a whole month, but now it's going to have one. So, not Creep 2. Creep 2 is going to take the Friday slot, and then Saturday slot will be Halloween H2O, and then I won't spoil the last couple. Although I've said one of them before already, and it's kind of obvious what the last one is, but given what's coming out in the theaters roundabout now, but here we are. So we're going to talk about Creep 2. So this is a sequel. We'll start spoiler free, and then we'll give you warning before we get into spoilers. However, I think we will maybe have to mention one or two things from the first movie as we discuss it. So warning there if you've not seen Creep 1, but that's just that it has to be. So so what is Creep and Creep 2? Creep was a found footage movie. Where a creepy person named Aaron, played by Mark Duplass, put out an ad for someone to come and film his life for a couple of days, and he just was very creepy, and he seemed like he wanted him to be his friend, and it was a slow build. It was found footage, of course, like I said, all shot through the camera, and it had great moments, had a great, the Mark Duplass, it was like an acting tour de force for him to just be this creepy bastard. I want to describe him without using the word creepy, but that is genuinely what he is. He's not scary. He's not terrifying. He is creepy.
It's creepy. He's unsettling. There's just even just watching it on your TV, like you feel that there's like a presence around him that you're like, oh, I don't really like being in the same area as this person.
Tinge of disturbing. There you go. Tinge of disturbing. Just to get a whiff of it. So that was Creep, and eventually, he turns into a bit of a stalker character. There's some great scares in it, and then it ends ultimately with him killing the other character, and we find out that he collects these videotapes of all of his victims, and that's kind of how that movie wraps up. So I was curious. It's Creep 2. Is Creep 2 just going to be another victim, and it's just going to be like, oh, how's it different this time? And I want to commend this before I even describe it, because part of why I want to say, oh, this is actually a really inventive sequel, is because right off the bat it says, no, we're doing something different with this. We're doing something that completely shakes up what the first movie was. It's not just another victim, because he puts out an advert, and someone responds that this woman who's making YouTube videos about answering weird wanted ads and going to see the people and finding out if they're weird or whatever. She accepts, she goes to it, and in the first 2 minutes of her being there, he actually says to her on camera, I am a serial killer, I have killed 39 people, and I want you to make a documentary about me being a serial killer, and I promise I won't kill you. And that is our setup for Creep 2. She doesn't quite believe him at first. There's some back and forth in terms of that, but it completely shakes things up because it's a completely different approach to what the first movie was, and basically from a character perspective, he's kind of going through a midlife crisis where he's not sure if he wants to keep killing people, and that's kind of the setup for Creep 2. So, Tim, I always ask the question: did you enjoy Creep 2?
Heck yeah, I did. It was fantastic, and I wouldn't say I was worried about it, because I did like the first one so much, and it's a real simple movie, and it's not like there's a ton of people involved, so it's like you know, it's not like the sequel now it's like someone else doing it and a big studio thing. How are they gonna ruin it or whatever? It's you know, I had faith in the people making it, but kind of like you were saying, I was I guess a little trepidatious because I was like, oh, well, I mean, what else can you really do with this character in this format? And like you said, they've found an angle to it that not just like an approach to the movie, but actually an approach to the character and the dynamic between these two. That really made me go, okay, this is not just a let's make a sequel to cash in and make some money because people like the first one. This is like, oh, we're actually exploring stuff in interesting ways, and there's a reason for the story we're telling. And I was super into it. It's really fast paced, but there's some really cool parts to it. And, interested the whole way through, and I was really, really, really happy with it. By the time our time with it was over.
By the time our time with it was over. What a weird way to phrase the movie ended. It finished. I like
when you finish a movie, you don't turn it off and go, I guess our time is done.
I do not.
You blow out the candle.
Because the movie is not a sentient being. I don't have to think of it that way. I scratch somewhere and then go, oh, I better go to the toilet because I've been sitting down watching a movie for the past while.
Oh, you don't watch everything on your toilet chair?
Hey, that's not a bad idea. There's something to be said there. Maybe a TV in the bathroom. Maybe an investment.
The gimmicks they're pulling to get people into the theaters nowadays. I don't think that's too far off.
Yeah, they'll be charging $40 a ticket to sit in the toilet seat while you're watching a movie. I like the movie quite a bit. I don't think I saw some opinions saying, "Oh, it's much better than the first one." I don't think I agree with that. No, I don't think it's necessarily worse than the first one. I actually think they work out about equal, but for different reasons. I think if I'm comparing it to the first one, I think the first one's actually a creepier movie. Like I think there's a bit more scares and like moments where I think, "Oh, this is tense." This one doesn't have as much tense stuff in it. It has inventive ideas in what it's doing with the characters, but I feel like there wasn't as much like I remember the first movie, the first time we saw that Peach Fuzz mask at the bottom of the stairs. That was like nail biting stuff. Whereas in this movie, I feel like there's less of that.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's almost a dark comedy. This one actually. There's
sure.
The opening scene, which is kind of like it's like a victim before we get to the main character for the movie. Like there's a moment where he smiles at the camera. Where he kind of is like, yeah, you're in this. I'm going to kill this guy. That moment made me laugh so much, and I was so into it. I'm like, man, he was born to play this role.
Yeah.
As weird as that probably sounds.
But it really does work so well, like, in tandem with the first movie, because the character so much from that first movie, and now in this, it's like, all the gloves are off. Like we really get to see him in his element, and then also see him like, be pretty vulnerable and like kind of making like weird life choices and seeing how he interacts with someone that he might not be sure what he wants to do with, and it's like a really, really interesting character study, and a lot of it leads to some pretty funny scenes. And
Sarah's challenges him in ways that he didn't expect as well, because he jumps out and scares her like multiple times at the start of the movie, and she doesn't react. She doesn't jump. She doesn't get scared. She's like, "Oh, cool, bro. What are we doing?" And this fascinates him. It's like she actually challenges his, the way he thinks. He's like, "Oh, wait, if that didn't work, then what?" And
you really endear yourself to her character. I think pretty early on. Like it's not like, oh, this isn't just another victim that we're gonna feel sorry for, or you're gonna yell at the screen to get out while you still can. Like
it's funny actually how often with found footage movies we talk about the justification why the character's still filming, right? We often talk about, it's unbelievable for this reason or that reason. I feel like this character was designed to try and, like, right from the start, she wants to answer these ads to find weirdos, right from the start, she's upset that her YouTube view count is low. She's only got 9 views on the video. She's like, oh, no one cares about my web series, blah.
Yeah.
And which, by the way, I thought was really funny. The fact that she's like, her YouTube view count, and like, oh. So right from the start, like, it's like, no, she's determined. She wants to find a weirdo. She wants to film him, and for a long time, it works as a motivation because like it's like she was built around the idea that she wants to keep filming. That is the entire character, and she she talks about it as well. So when she's like doing like vlog moments with the camera, she'll say, "Oh yeah, I really should be running away from this guy. Like, this is kind of weird," but it's mostly convincing for a long time. So I'll give it props for that as well. But like I say, I think where this movie succeeds is changing up the formula from the first movie. Doing some interesting things with the characters. Maybe where it falls down compared to the first one is that I don't think it's as scary or as creepy or like has as many of those really cool moments. There's one or two, but it's not to the same extent. I feel like the first one had a lot of moments where I was like, oh man, that's really, again, creepy. I want to be inventive with my wording here because the movie's called Creep, but that is legitimately how it felt a lot of the time. But hey.
Yeah, but it definitely works so in this case where it's like, I mean, they probably could have easily done another movie where, he recruits another victim and he does have more of those same things, and it could have still been, good, but, there wouldn't have been as much of a reason for it to exist. It would have just been more of the same or something, which I guess in a little bit was kind of what I was expecting, because again, it's just such a specific format and character and stuff is kind of like, well, what else can they do? But I like that they actually tried something different and made really interesting characters and moments. And I definitely see what you're saying where it maybe didn't have as much of the creepiness, the tension, but I feel like it definitely made up for it with just like all the interesting character moments and the kind of just wanting to know what's going to happen next and see where it's going.
Yeah, I'm going to save which one I actually prefer until the end of the review because I'm not wasting that here. You're going to have to stick around. But yeah, so I think we'll give the spoiler warning so we can start talking about actual stuff that's in the movie. So full spoilers. So this, like I said, the movie starts with this sort of like victim that he's currently working on. This guy, what's his name, Dave, and Dave gets a package, and we see like there's like fur around the edge of the camera, and he doesn't seem to be aware there's a camera there, and he's like phoning someone. He's like watching something that was in the box with the what we find out is a mini Peach Fuzz with a camera inside it, which I think's pretty hilarious. Peach Fuzz, of course, is a wolf, in case you're wondering. You didn't see the first movie. And we hear the door go, and I'm like, I bet it's him. And sure enough, he comes and says, oh, there's this weird stalker. And like, sure enough, his friend that sits down next to him is him. And I love, like, the moment where I realised, man, I really love this character is when Dave says, oh, let me go get you a drink. He's, oh, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, get me a drink. And he goes away to get into the kitchen. And then Aaron just kind of like, he smiles at the camera. He's like, yeah, I'm going to be watching this later. I'm going to smile because I'm here to kill this asshole. And he's just like, oh, it cracked me up so much. And,
I like him kind of explaining their relationship when he's just talking like, who would have thought like us meeting each other at the coffee shop, each reading the same copy of Infinite Jest, and it worked so well, like as these two characters like saying, oh man, like isn't it crazy like how we met and stuff, but as the viewer knowing him from the first movie and just being like, oh, you manipulative like asshole, like all of that was so precisely set up. And
that's actually one of the moments where I would say it had a really good creepy moment is when you see him sort of pulling the knife from the side, because it's all one shot, of course, just one two shot, but you see he's got a knife down by his side and the conversation keeps going, and like Dave's starting to get a little bit nervous and he tries to get up, and that's why he just lifts up his arm and just swipes his neck with a knife, and it's just like blood sprays, and he's just sort of sitting there sort of like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, Dave. I don't know if I enjoy killing anymore. Like, he's having this crisis, this existential crisis.
And I like this idea too, because we have definitely seen you know, other serial killer movies before, but I like the idea of the, you know, midlife crisis serial killer. I mean, it's just like anything, like, you know, if you're a struggling writer or musician and you're getting to that point where you're a little older and you've been making these things that no one has, you know, seen or appreciated. And yeah, I just like that kind of existential crisis of being like, am I, you know, why am I doing this? Is this the right thing? Should I keep with it?
Yeah, it's just a fun idea. And like, we see Sarah see her stupid web series, and she's interviewing these other guys, and she's willing to do stupid things to try and make her think or video entertaining. And she's like, oh yeah, well, I'll go see him. And she comes in, and he's at the blender. We see he's got a beard now. He's got longer hair, and this is the whole thing. Here's the funny thing. So he kind of like becomes attracted to her as the movie goes on. And I actually thought for a chunk of time when she was like scaring him instead of. There's later on when he like goes up to her when she's in the shower, and instead she's waiting for him, and she's got like tape all over her face to jump out and scare him. Yeah. And she does. I actually thought this was going to be like the Bride of Frankenstein, where we're going to get the Bride of Creep, and she was going to become like they were going to kill someone together by the end of the movie. Now that's not where it goes, but there was a point where I was like, maybe that's where this is going to go. Like, is that what's going to happen? We're going to get this couple of creeps now. I don't know.
What I liked about it was that you can tell that he's, I guess, attracted to her, but not in a, like, it doesn't feel like, you know, he's like, oh man, like I really want that. But you can, almost like an animal, like he's interested in her. Like, it's like, oh, like of all the people I've killed and encountered, I've never seen someone like this before. And there's like, you just see in his eyes this weird fascination starting to grow.
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use, was fascinated. He's fascinated by her, and that turns into attraction, but not necessarily in a regular, just, you know, sexual. It's not like she walks in. That said, though, she's only there for like 5 minutes before he walks out in a towel, and you know, in my head I'm like, wait, is this a Harvey Weinstein scene? What's going on? And that's actually what it reminded me of. I guess that's just a case of it being in the public conscious right now. That the idea of him having over to his house and just walking out like this reminds me of that, because that's what those stories were. Is he'd walk out in a bathrobe and nothing else. Yeah. But he's like, look, there's this weird barrier between men and women. You know, men, they'll slap each other with the towels in the locker room or whatever, and it's fine. Women all try on clothes together, it's fine. But with men and women, you always have this barrier because you're imagining right away, what does that other person look like naked? So I think we need to take down that barrier. And I'm like, this is the point where she should want to run. Just not even just because she thinks she may be killed, but just because this guy is a weirdo. This is like beyond weird. And I'm like, are we doing full frontal nudity? Are we going to see Mark Duplass in all of his glory? And he's like, I think we should do that. Are you good with that? Are you ready? And she's like, yeah, I agree. And he just drops the towel, and it's full frontal nudity. And this is not to insult Mark Duplass. I don't mean it in this way, but I laughed so hard when he dropped that towel, because it's the stance he makes. He does this sort of stance, like he's like, it's like he's posing for a statue, like, you know, for clay.
Yeah, and he kind of like adjusts himself, like he's not really steady at first, and then he kind of like he has this original stance, and then he kind of readjusts himself a little bit to, you know, get it perfect. And
it made me laugh so hard. I feel like if I said, oh, by the way, that when you took off your clothes in Creep 2, I laughed so hard. Like, that would sound like I'm trying to be insulted, and I'm not. It was genuinely really funny. And it lingered on him for so long while he was naked that it became funny again, because I'm like, oh, this is just insane. And she's like, oh, so is it my turn now? And I'm like, man, she's really willing to go far for this. Like, if she's willing to do this.
I love that it's like, you can tell that in a way, like, this is kind of like her weapon, like her way to combat him is to just go along with everything he does and to show no fear or anything, and it just makes her feel like such a smart, like capable character.
And to be fair to her as well, like the little vlog she does in the bathroom after this, she's like, yeah, I should probably be running. Like, I was here for 10 minutes and then his dick was in my face. Like, I should take this as a sign and just go for it. But she's like, yeah, but this might be the best like episode of was it confrontations? What was the name of the thing? Encounters. That was it. Yeah. That's going to be the best episode of Encounters ever. So she's like willing to do it. Here's the point I really liked about that scene though, when she takes her clothes off. You don't get full frontal with her because this is the weird thing, is that Aaron doesn't care about seeing her naked. He actually zooms into her face. Yeah. He actually, as she's taking her clothes off, he zooms in and then it's just her face. So she's standing there naked, but we don't see her at all. He doesn't care. It's not, for him, it's not about the nudity. But it was a nice touch. I thought that worked. It was kind of like into his psyche kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that because it feels like it actually kind of reminds me of something like a little, like a kid would do or something, like the way kids kind of egg each other on, but then once someone's like, all right, fine, I'll do this or that or whatever, and then everyone else is kind of like, oh well, I didn't think you would do it. It just reminds me of that same kind of mentality where you're trying to push someone and then once they're like, okay, then you kind of back off. And yeah, I like that he was like very sheepish about it and wasn't just like, oh, hey now.
Yeah, it's the same when he tries to scare her and she just like stands there and is like, yeah, nice try, buddy. Where are we going? Yeah, and they go out. It is very reminiscent of the first movie where they go out to this, this sort of countryside area. They go by the river, and he seems to expect a giant river, but there's none here now.
Actually, I like the scene a lot. I actually kind of thought of you just in terms of, I don't know, well, because when you film...
Wait a minute. You're watching Creep 2 and he reminded you of me. I should be offended by this. But go on.
Well, it's kind of funny because there's like you have the one character who is this, trying to make these internet videos. So I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see how that relates to us. And then the other character, just like with, you've done like short films and stuff before, and just how you're trying to film something and like literally everything that can go wrong goes wrong. Like, it's just like the water's not there, and then he's like waiting for a plane to pass and a bird that won't shut up.
Yeah, the water though is just him being an idiot.
Yeah.
He can plan for that and account for it. Yeah, the plane flying overhead though, I have been there. Like we have to stop for 2 minutes while the plane goes past because it's bloody loud. Like yeah,
he even says something like they wait for a beat and then he's kind of like, it's a really long plane or something like that.
And then the bird keeps chirping and he like threatens it. He's like, you shut up now, bird. And then eventually he's about to go and she's like, oh, by the way, we've kind of lost the sun, the shadows now over your face. And she goes and finds him after he throws a tantrum and he's just lying face down in the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, not creepy, but really entertaining in kind of a sort of amusing way.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And there is still a facet of, oh, I don't want to be around this person. Like maybe it's not as scary as like in the first movie, but there is a like they're not the best to be around right now.
You feel like he could go nuts at any time. Like, you feel like he's totally unhinged. That is still there. And there's lots of points where he's holding an axe or he gives eventually he's like, yeah, by the end of this video you're going to kill me. That's what the ending's going to be. And he lies down on a table and gives her an axe, and she just can't do it. So then it cuts to, and this is actually her breaking point. Like she's done so well all movie, no matter his bullshit, and he hangs himself from the ceiling, and he's like, all you have to do is not save me, and I'll die. And like you're a first timer, and this is where I was still thinking it's going to eventually be her killing someone, at least him maybe. Although of course the doubt there is that, oh well, if we want a Creep 3 though, we have to maybe keep Duplass around. But this freaks out. She saves him, but this freaks out. This is what she's like, no, I'm done. I'm going. Like I can't stay now. Like that's really messed up. But then he's like, oh look, I had a harness on. Like I was never going to die. Like it was fake. And that convinces her to stay. And then it progresses from there. We have the kind of weird romance scene in the hot tub. Where she like comforts him when he's feeling really depressed and lonely, and all that. So,
and that's when he does the monologue about his supposed origin. Which now, just out of curiosity, do you believe any of that at all, or do you assume that he's just making it up?
I think it could go either way.
I feel like given what we know of the character, I'm more obliged to think that, you know, he probably has multiple origin stories that he can tell that it's probably made up. But then at the same time, well, he has been pretty honest with this girl up to this point.
Yeah,
it does seem like maybe the kind of thing that he would be like, oh, I'm going to throw her off with blunt honesty and stuff. So, yeah, I'm not sure either.
especially if he's the whole thing is that he wants to. He's not sure if he wants to keep doing this, and he wants to be honest and make a documentary. Like, is this him telling his real origin because he thinks, oh, this is the end of me, and I might as well tell the real story? I don't know. But it could all just be a ploy to like mess with her head, like he seems to be trying to do. And I like how she's bold enough to correct him, because at one point he says, "Oh, and I promised I wouldn't kill you, so I can't do that." And she's like, "No, you said you wouldn't kill me for 24 hours. So technically, once we're past the day, you could kill me." And he's like, "Oh, why would you bring that up? Well, that gets you in trouble." And there's this friendliness to it.
I love. I think it's along the lines of that same scene too, where he, or maybe it might be a little later, but when he starts talking about how he gives ample warning to all his victims, and when they're going over what that really means, and it's just kind of like, well, I invited this one guy over and I had an axe out front, so.
Well, that was the first movie, right? I seem to call that the axe from the because that's the other thing. He shows all the footage of when he kills the guy in the first movie.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. She's still not sure it's this real. I mean, this could be faked. I mean, after all, we're watching a movie where they had to fake it, so
yeah,
like of course you might just think it was faked. But no, it's everything he does is to like try and like break her, and it never does until the hanging. And then after this, is like they have that weird scene where he's like, "Oh, I've never had a girlfriend," and she's like, "Oh, do you want your first kiss?" and gives him a little kiss, and this is where he's like, okay, he's infatuated now. This actually might be worse for her, depending on what you think, because he has a really warped sense of what you do with someone you care about, and obviously the story he told her about his origin involved like digging a grave for himself because this guy was going to kill him and bury him alive. He takes her into the woods, and he gives her a locket, which is one that he made for one of his friends, one of his previous victims, because it's got two guys in it.
Wasn't that from the first movie too?
I think it was. I vaguely remember it. Yeah. And then he's like, wait, turn around, and there's like a grave that he's dug, and he's like, oh, this will be so romantic. We can have our end together. We'll bury each other together.
And he mentions earlier in the movie too that when he kills someone, he lies with them, and their spirits kind of like he takes on the spirit of the other person. So he's talking about how he wants to if he lies with her and they kill each other, then their spirits will kind of be entwined. Yeah.
So at this point he wants to kill her because he cares about her, but like he wants them to die together. So he stabs himself like 4 times, and then hands her a knife. And he's like, right, your turn. Unsurprisingly,
and she just jets.
Yeah, she is not, thrilled with this suggestion. He grabs her, he beats her up a bit, stabs her maybe, sort of behind a tree. This is where it gets a little bit creepy again. I actually really like the following thing, because he talks to the camera. He sort of throws her on the grave, and he comes over and talks to the camera, and monologues about what they're going to, this is what he's about to do, and blah 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 blah. And you just see her crawling out of the grave behind him, really quiet, and like picking up the shovel.
Yeah, I was so happy because I really dug this new character, and I felt a lot more invested in her than I did the guy in the previous movie. And I was actually legitimately bummed when it kind of looked like she was dead. But yeah, once you see him talking to the camera, and it's such a there's something about it where it's like it's so static, and it's so the background is so evident. After he's talking for a while, I start thinking like, is it possible she's gonna get up? And then once you see her crawling up, it's like, yes. And then you see her grab the shovel, and it's like, yes.
And she's been so quiet, we can see her the entire time, and then she just hits them in the back of the head with a shovel and runs off. And I'm like, I should have made sure he was dead, because that's not a kill shot. He's getting back up. And the end of the movie is actually kind of just a really subtle little thing where he's clearly stalking her, because she's got different hair, and she's like walking through the city, and then she's on the subway, and she just kind of notices him off in the distance. She hears him whistling and looks over at him, and she looks concerned, and then that's when we cut to credits. That's the end of the movie. So she may still be dead, though. I mean, she could be in the third one, if there's a third one, but she's probably dead.
That's what I would assume, yeah. I definitely would be very interested if they do another one.
I'm interested to see how they shake it up again. Like, what's the premise for 3? Like, what did they do differently this time? That would be what would interest me in it, I think. Especially, that's what I'm impressed with more than anything, is that this felt different. Even though, yeah, it's still someone coming to the house with a camera, he's been a creep, but there was a different twist on it, because it was like, no, right away, I'm a serial killer. I want you to make a documentary about me. And I'm trying not to be a killer anymore. And I'm kind of infatuated with you. Because, okay, sure, he pretended and he talked like he cared about the victims before. But here it's like, no, I get the sense he actually really cares about her. He really likes her.
Oh, yeah.
And, but to him, what does that mean? And what does that mean he has to do? And for him, that means we can kill each other. I won't just kill you. We kill each other, because that's how this works for him.
I mean, I got the sense that he was, fully like into her killing him and like taking his place. Like it didn't seem like a manipulation thing, or that he knew that she wouldn't do it. Like I kind of got the feeling like, oh, this is what he wants, and I like that. Part of his justification is that it's like, oh, this would be like my masterful ending to my 40th movie, which I guess I didn't really get the sense of him in the first movie as like being a guy that's all about making these movies. Like I just got the sense that he was a serial killer, and this was kind of his way to creep people out and then kind of have a trophy of it afterwards. But I like this, that it's like, oh no, he's like a full-on like director who likes making these things and then watching them, and he takes pride in them. I thought that was pretty cool.
I can relate to that. Not the killing, but I can relate to the pride in the direction part of it. So it's a really short movie. It's like 79 minutes and something long. It's very short. It gets to the point. I was actually surprised how close I was to the end. Like, at one point, I just happened to check, where am I? And there was like 15 minutes left. I was like, oh shit, how can this end in 15 minutes? I didn't feel like I was towards the end, which is maybe the one critique, other than there being less creepy moments, would be that I feel like there's not as much build to the ending, I guess. Whereas the first one, I feel like it kept ramping up towards the end. It kept getting more tense, and the character felt more and more fear. Whereas here, like it was kind of sprung on her just before the ending, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So I'd give that critique of it, but definitely very solid though. Like I say, our character was very likable. You liked that she challenged him, and how did he process that? And obviously, Duplass was again fantastic the whole time.
One thing I wasn't crazy about, and I mean, it probably makes more sense, for the movie, but I like the idea at first, thinking that she did actually believe that he was a serial killer, but she was still like, she was smart and knew that, oh, if I run, he's just gonna find me and kill me. But like, if I play his game, I have a much better shot of living. But then it kind of turns out that, oh no, she didn't really believe him. Like, so I feel like that kind of, I wasn't crazy about that, because it's like, well, now it feels like the danger and stuff wasn't as real. I don't know. I like that idea better, but not a huge complaint or anything.
Well, I feel like we're wrapping up here, so we should probably get to the old ratings and any final points you want to make. So, Tim, what would you rate Creep 2 out of 10?
I'm gonna give it a really solid 8. I enjoyed it a lot. It is short, but it's not it goes by really fast, but in an enjoyable way. And yeah, I think if you like the first one, I think this is a great follow-up for it. It works really well with it.
It does work well with it. I'm going to just be slightly harsher and say 7.5, just slightly.
Okay.
I do prefer the first one overall, I think, because it feels more like a horror movie to me.
That's fair.
But this one, like, I appreciate this for everything it did different, and for the different ideas that it introduced and the way it spun things around. But ultimately, I think the actual tension, the actual horror of it was better in the first one, so that's where my vote would go. But solid solid double feature now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It'd be really hard for me to pick one over the other. If I did have to go one way, yeah, it probably would be the first one, but just be like by the slightest little.
Yeah, 'cause I think I gave the first one an 8, so this one's 7 point. That's good for sequel going right there. So by all means, but yeah, that is Creep 2. So yeah, let us know what you think of the movie. So we mentioned, I briefly mentioned something in the Halloween 6 review at the end that we might do, and we have done it now. It's been enacted for patrons. We have a new feature in the $5 tier on Patreon called The Crypt, the Streams After Midnight Crypt, which is basically just that patrons at that level can submit movies for suggestion, and those movies go onto the list, the Crypt list. And it's basically the idea is that every so often, from time to time, we will say, oh, we'll take a movie from the list that people have suggested and do one of those. Or maybe we'll put 4 of them in the vote for the Patreon vote that month. But the idea is that there's now a to-do list that's fan-submitted, and once in a while, we will take one off that list. Credit to one of our regulars, Board Now, who I think submitted 27 films already.
Aye.
He's not the only person that submitted, but he definitely submitted the most. That said, part of the fun of this is that there's no limit. You can submit 25 in one go. You can submit 25 every single day if you want. Of course, the more there is, the longer it'll take us to get to like a lot of them. So, but that is, of course, the bigger the better, though, honestly. So. Yeah, the actual list will be public. I've not posted the link yet, but basically if you go to the Patreon post where we announced this, there'll be a link in there as well to actually go see the list that it currently is. So it's public, you can see it. Well, I say it's public for patrons, so the patrons who are there can see the list if they want.
Makes sense.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, obviously we have the monthly vote and all that as well on Patreon. So if you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support the show and the channel and everything we do. But otherwise, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Helps us out a lot as well. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So brace yourself for the final run of movies for this October-thon. Remember that we're going to take the first week in November off after Halloween, just to recuperate, because we've been working very hard and very frequent this month. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching. Keep watching scary movies, guys. We will see you next time.